The year was 1986, a year that would become infamous in the annals of history. The world watched in horror as news emerged from the Soviet Union, a catastrophe that would change the course of nuclear energy forever. Chernobyl, a name that would forever be etched in history, synonymous with disaster. It was a name that would evoke fear, sorrow, and a deep sense of loss. On April 26, a seemingly routine safety test at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant transformed into a catastrophic explosion, releasing a plume of radioactive material into the atmosphere. The explosion was so powerful that it blew the roof off Reactor 4, sending a deadly cloud of radiation across Europe. The world held its breath. This wasn't just an accident, it was a stark warning about the devastating power of unchecked nuclear energy. The radioactive cloud spread across borders, affecting countries far and wide, and the true scale of the disaster began to unfold. Nestled amidst the picturesque countryside of what is now Ukraine, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was a symbol of Soviet ambition and technological prowess. Chernobyl was once a symbol of Soviet progress. The power plant, with its 4 mighty reactors, promised to illuminate homes and fuel industries. It was a beacon of hope and a testament to human ingenuity. The nearby town of Pripyat, built to house the plant's workers and their families, was a model Soviet city, boasting amenities and opportunities that many could only dream of. It had schools, hospitals, and recreational facilities, all designed to create a utopian community. But this facade of prosperity masked a chilling reality. A flawed design and a culture of secrecy within the Soviet nuclear industry had set the stage for an unprecedented disaster. The RBMK reactor used in Chernobyl had a critical design flaw that made it unstable at low power levels. The residents of Pripyat, oblivious to the ticking time bomb in their backyard, went about their lives. They trusted the authorities and believed in the safety of the nuclear plant. Children played in parks, couples strolled along the riverbank, and families gathered in their cozy apartments unaware that their world was about to be irrevocably changed. The air was filled with laughter and the promise of a bright future. The explosion at Chernobyl was not just a failure of technology but a failure of human judgment, a stark reminder of the responsibility we bear when tampering with forces beyond our control. The aftermath was devastating, with thousands of lives lost and countless others affected by radiation sickness. The land, once fertile and vibrant, became a desolate wasteland, a haunting reminder of the cost of human error. The Chernobyl disaster didn't happen overnight. It was a slow-moving catastrophe, years in the making, with a series of missteps and oversights that would eventually lead to one of the most devastating nuclear accidents in history. It was the culmination of a series of errors, both technical and human. The plant's operators were under immense pressure to meet energy production quotas, often at the expense of safety. The reactor's design, riddled with flaws, made it inherently unstable. The RBMK 1000 reactor used at Chernobyl had a dangerous combination of a positive void coefficient and a lack of a robust containment structure. Safety protocols, often ignored or overlooked, failed to provide a crucial safety net. The culture of complacency and the belief that Soviet technology was infallible led to a dangerous disregard for established safety measures. In the days leading up to the disaster, a sense of unease lingered in the air. Plant workers were aware of the reactor's issues, but their concerns were often dismissed by higher authorities. Engineers at the plant were preparing for a safety test, a routine procedure that had been delayed multiple times. This test was crucial, as it aimed to determine the reactor's ability to cool itself in the event of a power outage. The test aimed to simulate a power outage and assess the reactor's ability to cool itself. However, the procedure was fraught with risks, and the reactor's unstable design only exacerbated these dangers. However, this routine procedure was fraught with risks, made worse by the reactor's unstable design. The test required the reactor to operate at low power, a condition under which the RBMK reactor was particularly unstable. Warnings from concerned engineers went unheeded. Many had raised alarms about the reactor's safety, but their voices were drowned out by the pressure to maintain production and the pervasive culture of secrecy. A culture of secrecy, and a fear of admitting weakness, deeply ingrained in the Soviet system, prevented open discussion about the reactor's vulnerabilities. This lack of transparency meant that critical issues were often swept under the rug. The stage was set for a catastrophe, with each passing hour pushing the plant closer to the brink of disaster. The combination of flawed design, ignored safety protocols, and a culture of secrecy created a perfect storm, leading to the inevitable explosion that would change the world forever. The clock ticked past midnight, ushering in April 26th, a day that would forever be seared into the memories of those who witnessed the horrors that unfolded. The air was still, and the streets were eerily quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath in anticipation of the impending disaster. Little did anyone know the events that were about to transpire would change the course of history and leave an indelible mark on humanity. The safety test was underway, but a series of missteps and miscalculations pushed the reactor beyond its limits. The operators, unaware of the catastrophic chain reaction they had set in motion, continued their work, oblivious to the impending doom. The control room, usually a place of precision and order, became a ticking time bomb, with every second bringing them closer to disaster. Suddenly a surge of power ripped through Reactor 4. The reactor core, unable to withstand the immense pressure, began to glow ominously. The very heart of the nuclear plant was now a cauldron of uncontrollable energy, threatening to unleash its fury upon the world. The control room, bathed in the eerie glow of warning lights, was plunged into chaos. Alarms blared, and the once composed engineers were now frantically trying to regain control. Panic set in as they realized the gravity of the situation, but it was already too late. The chain reaction had begun and there was no stopping it. Two explosions, one after the other, ripped through the reactor building, tearing apart the concrete and steel structure, and spewing forth a deadly plume of radioactive material into the night sky. The force of the blasts was so immense that it shattered windows miles away and sent shockwaves through the surrounding area. The once mighty reactor was now a smoldering ruin, a testament to the destructive power of nuclear energy gone awry. The explosion was just the beginning of the nightmare. The reactor site, once a hub of activity and technological prowess, was now a scene of utter devastation. Fires raged uncontrollably, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of burning materials. The true extent of the damage was still unknown, but it was clear that the consequences would be far-reaching and long-lasting. Firefighters, first responders to the scene, were met with a scene of unimaginable destruction. The brave men and women, trained to handle the most dangerous of situations, were now facing a challenge unlike any they had ever encountered. The intense heat and radiation made their task nearly impossible, but they pressed on, driven by a sense of duty and the hope of saving lives. Unaware of the invisible danger they faced, they bravely battled the inferno, their heroic efforts exposing them to lethal doses of radiation. The protective gear they wore was no match for the intense radiation, and many of them would later succumb to the effects of their exposure. Their sacrifice, however, was not in vain, as their actions helped to contain the disaster and prevent an even greater catastrophe. The world watched in horror as news of the disaster slowly trickled out of the Soviet Union, but the full extent of the catastrophe was yet to be grasped. The initial reports were vague and downplayed the severity of the situation, but as more information emerged, the true scale of the disaster became apparent. The Chernobyl disaster would go down in history as one of the worst nuclear accidents ever, a stark reminder of the potential dangers of nuclear power and the importance of safety and vigilance.